two things. The first one is probably paramount, is emerging science. And when you look at kind of food processing, you've seen peanuts, you've seen foods that have normally been deemed as safe, and you've seen rapid outbreaks and deaths and sickness that has really spanned the entire U.S. at different times. So for us, emerging science, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And if you look at FDA recalls, historically, if you go back into the mid-90s and fast forward into the 2000s, there were a number of recalls out there, mainly on allergens, labeling, things of that nature. There were also a lot of sicknesses that couldn't be documented. It was just written down as someone got sick, undefined. As science emerged, we were able to find micro, we were able to test more rapidly, we were able to fingerprint, get the DNA, and trace it all the way back to a farm field, which is great, because now we can see it and find it. But what's happened is our food system is now safer than it's ever been, but now we're finding more and more issues and recalling more and more products, rightly so, because now the science can allow us to see things that we once couldn't see. So emerging science and how fast science moves, and can the food industry keep up, is one concern. When you think about infrastructures, a lot of the equipment we use, our manufacturing facilities were built sometimes back in the mid-60s, mid-70s. If you're lucky, you're in the 90s, and that's pretty rare, but existing infrastructures are there. They weren't built for what we know today. So from a capital standpoint, not only from equipment, but manufacturing infrastructure, can we adapt quick enough to keep up with, again, science? Secondly, the big one is the Food Safety Modernization Act, which has kind of come from some of this emerging science and what we've seen out in the United States from sicknesses and things of that nature. So FSMA passed 2 years ago. It wasn't until last week, actually, that some of the first legislation was actually released, and now it's out for public comment. So that's preventative controls, and it's produce. Now what will happen is we're going to have 120 days for comment. Then we're going to move forward probably a year and a half, and then we'll finally publish those regulations. Then from there, depending on the size of your business, you have a year or longer to comply. But we've heard a lot. Mary talked about prevention. Steve talked about people safety. Brian talked about the paradigm shift in quality. And then Mike talked about preparing for the future. That's what FSMA really embodies, because at one point, FDA was focused on, we have an issue, let's react, and let's go figure out where it came from. The whole FSMA program is based upon preventative controls. So now, as organizations, we need to implement FMEA, we need to understand root cause analysis, we need to go into these CI, TPM, Lean Six Sigma tools and begin to deploy those so we now can prevent as opposed to react. And some companies do that, some of your bigger companies do, but everybody is going to have to do it now because it's going to be legislated. They're going to have programs that are documented. You're going to have root cause analysis that you show to auditors to say, I found the root cause, I can show what it was, here's my plan of action, and I can validate that I actually took care of that issue. So the whole landscape's changing, and that kind of brings you to the second one. It's FSMA, but more importantly, it's can we adapt our culture, can we adapt our food processing industry quick enough to keep up with the emerging science.